Hi, this is William Smith from CX Today, bringing all the latest customer experience industry news. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by Andrew Smith of PowerReviews to find out a bit about how businesses can take advantage of user-generated content. So, Andrew, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and before we get started, I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and your role.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the VP of Marketing at PowerReviews, and PowerReviews is a user-generated content company. As I like to say, we provide user-generated content, user-generated UGC technology, but also the support to kind of help people really optimize their UGC programs as well. So that's PowerReviews. We've been around since 2005. And yeah, we're about a kind of 120 people operation, and we support about 1,000 brands and retailers. And then myself, I'm obviously not from the US originally. I'm based in Chicago right now, but grew up in the UK, like yourself. But I've been with PowerReviews for about 18 months now, and I head up the marketing team.
Well, awesome. And I want to just start by asking you, what are the key considerations for success for any business that's kind of seeking to take advantage of user-generated content?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. First off, I would say, you really can't win in e-commerce without user-generated content, and increasingly you can't win offline in-store as well, because shoppers are looking at ratings and reviews before they even get in store. So it's a really, really important factor during the kind of online customer journey. And why is that? It's because when a customer hits a product page, they're looking for reasons to buy that product and things and consideration points to assess the value of that product. So if you think like what is the point of rating and review? It's really to provide buyer confidence to someone who's shopping online, and like I say, increasingly shopping in store as well. So that's the first thing to note. And I would say for any company who wants to kind of make the most of their ratings and reviews program or user-generated content program, there are really kind of three main elements to it. The first is collecting the content. So there's a few components to this, right? Volume's important, but recency is important as well. So we've done a ton of research on this, and we found that sort of 71% of consumers consider recency when reading reviews. For companies looking to run a good ratings and reviews program, that's really important. You need constant source of fresh review content, and then also just volume. So the same survey that we did, 68% said that in an ideal world, a product would have 26 or more reviews. So that's something companies really need to think about. Like, how are you going to generate the sort of volumes that is really going to make an impact? Mm-hmm. There are a few mechanisms you can use to do that, and we can totally dig into those in a little bit if you like. But the collection's important, the display is important as well. So like, how are you displaying it? Like, for example, the kind of most innovative companies are probably like personalizing their review displays to ensure that the right sort of review content is served depending on the buyer. Right. So that's a key element. And then the third part, which is something we're increasingly seeing, is the analysis perspective, right? So analyzing all that review content that comes in. Typically, when it comes to kind of consumer insight, companies have relied on surveys and that sort of thing, or maybe even focus groups, which tend to be really expensive. What they haven't really done is really make use of the review content from an analytics perspective, a kind of customer insight perspective, when you think there's kind of a real kind of gold mine of data in there that just hasn't been utilized up to now. But increasingly, we're seeing companies looking to do that. So yeah, I'd say it's three main elements.
Well, and you mentioned kind of data there. I wonder what kind of insights and data about customers can ratings and reviews generate that perhaps companies can't get in other ways?
Yeah, I think, well, there's two elements, right, really. The one is the optimization of the actual UGC program. So it's understanding how customers actually interact with the review content on their path to purchase, if you like. Yeah. And then optimizing for that. So, for example, in any kind of review display, there are a number of different components, and we offer a lot of different options when it comes to review display. For example, like probably a really simple one to understand is like a search bar. So consumers can search review content for specific keywords or something. So understanding how many people search, what people search for, that's really important in terms of like understanding whether that's a useful feature to have in your review display. And then also understanding like what consumers are looking for from a kind of product perspective. And really that kind of brings me to the second component, which is understanding product experience. So using it more as a kind of consumer insight in a traditional kind of, consumer survey type way, if you like. But really understanding how consumers interact with a product, how they want, their product experience, how that can be improved, but also how the product's messaged. Is it messaged in a way that consumers then get a product they expect, and should that be adjusted throughout the kind of marketing funnel? So I'd say it's really two components. One is optimizing the UGC approach in terms of what content you generate and what content you display. Then the other part is the product experience. And if you think as well, it's all publicly available information. So in terms of competitor insight, there's a lot of competitor insight that you can literally just mine, Amazon, Walmart, Target for us in the US, but, John Lewis, Tesco, whatever in the UK. And you can really kind of really get a good understanding of how you stack up against your competition and what consumers are looking for in that respect.
Well, and you mentioned earlier the statistics around how many reviews it takes to kind of build that level of trust in a review. So clearly it has an impact on kind of the loyalty of a company. What do you see as the main benefits of kind of implementing user-generated content for companies? Is it kind of all about generating that trust?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, at its core, it's about letting your customers be your own salespeople, right? So if you think it's the same in any business, like, we're trying to sell our B2B software. It's a lot more powerful a customer speaking on our behalf than us talking about how great our product is and the value proposition. So really, I think that's it. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's not like a really, really complicated form of consumer information. That's really what it's about. And in terms of the results and the kind of main benefits, it's like driving the conversions online, like really increasing the conversions. Like we can see from our kind of back-end display data that when a consumer interacts with review content, they are much more likely to go on and purchase that item. And then also, like I said, in-store sales, and that's something that's really interesting. The concept of like digitally influenced sales, which I think is something that I'm hearing a lot, particularly from e-commerce teams, because they really want to kind of portray their impact, So that's something I hear a lot, and that's something we believe definitely happens, and excited to get to a point where we can accurately size and measure that. So that's two main benefits. It's kind of like the sales impact. I think it really has a big impact on revenue, which you can't always say about if you're in a kind of B2B tech role. Like it's very, very clear ROI from that perspective. Then also, like I said, the data that comes with it, the consumer insight that comes with it. So I think, if I had to sum up the main benefits, it's those kind of, two things: more conversions and then kind of consumer insight.
Well, and obviously we've been through some kind of tricky times in the past year and a half to 2 years. I wonder, what's your perspective on the pandemic and its kind of impact on user-generated content? Has it become more important to give customers that kind of voice?
I think, reviews have always been really important during the customer journey for all the reasons we just talked about. But I think what you saw in the pandemic is that consumers were buying products they hadn't bought before online. And so they didn't have a kind of established practice of going and buying a specific product online. So they were looking for like validation or reasons to buy. And I think that's where kind of reviews came in. And, our back-end data showed that and it showed more people were interacting with our review content. And then also a higher percentage of those were actually going on to convert. So, before the pandemic, we were seeing about 4% of review interactors go on and convert. After it was about 5%. So I think that speaks to, what I just said, which is consumers buying new items that they hadn't bought before online. And typically they might have gone and bought it in store and where they could kind of see and touch it, which they can't do online. So I think that is likely the explanation for that. But I think as well, like just reviews and user-generated content more generally has just just becoming more and more a part of the buying experience. It's just like so common practice. I think Amazon's had a big impact on that. Like that's just a kind of normal part of the Amazon buying process. The top reviewed items perform best, and Amazon leads the way in a lot of things e-commerce, and I think that just kind of spills over into all retailers, all brands, etc. So I would say, yeah, consumers are relying on user-generated content more than they were before the pandemic. As far as giving customers a voice, I can't speak to like the sort of survey data, but and whether people are completing surveys more and that sort of thing. But yeah, as far as user-generated content goes, we are definitely seeing higher percentage of consumers interacting with that content before going on to purchase.
Mm-hmm. Well, and looking to the future, do you kind of expect that trend to continue? And what do you see as kind of other more important trends for user-generated content?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're almost at a point where reviews are so transcendent in e-commerce. It's almost like they can't become more used by shoppers, honestly. Like, we did a survey and we saw that 99.9%, we couldn't actually put 100% because we didn't think it seemed credible, but it came out at 99.9% of consumers looked at reviews before buying online. I mean, you can't get really more than that. And when we did the same survey in 2014, it was 94%. So, definitely it's increasing. So I don't think I don't think the appetite for user-generated content is going to go away. What I think is maybe you might start seeing more relying on different types of forms of user-generated content. So when you think about like images and videos and how like everyone's a videographer, everyone's like a camera person nowadays. Everyone's recording everything they do. I think that's probably going to become. I mean, it's already a pretty important part of what brands and retailers are displaying on their sites, but I think it's going to become even more important. So that's one thing. But when I think about like what our more sophisticated clients are doing, I would say it's they're analyzing their review content, like I say, because they realize it's a lot more cost effective. And it includes a bunch of really timely and important insights that they can't really get from other channels as a source of customer intelligence. I mean, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a huge demand for that from our product, from our customers, and from our prospects. I think so. Using it as a form of consumer insight, but also letting data lead the way in terms of how they display user-generated content on their sites, what types of user-generated content they collect. I think that's going to be something that we're going to see a lot of. And also just becoming more innovative in the way they collect user-generated content. So if you think the typical thing most companies do to go and get a bunch of review content is they'll email you after you buy a product in the hope that you might review it. Now, that is what we call like an organic review collection methodology. Realistically, like the conversion rates on those are not like huge. So typically, if you're looking to launch a new product, you need to have a bunch of review content in place before that product even goes live in some cases. So, how do you do that to ensure that you kind of get off the ground and get selling that product really quickly? And I think there's two methods that we're seeing. One is product sampling, which I mean is a really established process. I think a lot of people know about that. But also there's a new program that we're launching. It'd be remiss of me not to mention. We're calling it Receipt Review Collect, and we've partnered with a company called Fetch Rewards, and they have basically a bunch of consumer data on what consumers have purchased, in store and offline. And how they get that data is they've got 10 million consumers who are uploading their receipts every time they go to a store. So we can then, cross-tabulate that with the kind of requests we have for reviews, go and ask those customers who have bought those products for that review content. And it's proving pretty successful. That's a way of capturing, reviews from verified buyers who have bought products, not necessarily completely online, but in store as well. So I think those are kind of the most innovative things we're seeing. I would say in terms of future developments.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on user-generated content. It's been really great to hear from you, and thank you so much for your time.
No worries. I hope that was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And awesome. If you enjoyed this video, please do share it on social media and subscribe to our channel as well. This has been William Smith for CX Today. Thanks again to Andrew for his insight, and thank you for watching. Thanks.